how did you end up in security? How did you go from this to that? What got you from point A to point B? So I wanted to talk a little bit about how I actually ended up in security, right? Because it's one of the things I get asked all the time. Like, how did you end up in security? How did you go from this to that? What got you from point A to point B? And so I had to think about it, had to really sit down and kind of like, how did I end up in security? And it really boils back to transitioning out of the military. Coming out of the GWAT era, I knew that I wanted to work a nighttime job because I wanted to take advantage of those 9/11 benefits and get into college and try to get some experience, try to get some education. I knew that working nights would allow me to go to school during the day, right? So I ended up working at Motel 6, and if you can imagine, Iraq. I had about 12 months of dwell time, and then I'm out of the Army, okay? So transitioning out of the Army was super fucking hard for me. When you're in the Army, you're at your unit, you're with a bunch of other guys who are doing the same things as you, right? So a big explosion happens, everybody's reacting to contact, right? Somebody, drops a book, everybody's alert. Everybody's doing the same thing, right? So if you're with a bunch of people, and you're all doing the same thing, it's really difficult to know if there's something hypervigilant about you, right? We're just talking about hypervigilance, So when you transition out of the military and you go to college, where all of a sudden everybody is lackadaisical, nobody really cares, everybody's just kind of like doing whatever they're doing, trying to make it, and then you're the one that's being hypervigilant. You stick out like a sore thumb. And that's ultimately how I figured out that I had issues with PTSD or with stress in general. I hate saying PTSD because it's a hot button word. I hate saying that. But just with stress in general is just you begin to realize, oh, wait, I am a little bit different, right? Get my first job, working Motel 6, overnights, perfect, everything's going good. And then I worked like an evening shift on Saturday and Sunday with a female coworker. Okay, I'm from the combat MOSs, so I'm a Cav Scout. So, there's certain vernacular, if you will, for people who are in combat services, right? It's not politically correct, and I found it very quickly that my vernacular, although I'd like it to have changed, did not change. So. I'm over here talking shit and saying dirty words and hanging out with other people who use bad vernacular, use dirty words. I ended up getting fired. And I remember walking into my boss's office, and my boss sits me down and he goes, Mr. Barber, did you say XYZ, XYZ, XYZ? And of course I'm like, because I didn't really know. I was like, it doesn't sound like something I would say. And then he like shakes his head. He's like, yes, it is something you said. It is exactly what you said. I don't have a place for you here anymore. Please leave. And so I was talking to one of my older Army friends, right? He's old school, 82nd Airborne. And he's like, hey, I do security. Have you ever thought about doing security? And I was like, no. And at the time, I was applying to any law enforcement agency that would even touch me with a 10-foot pole, right? Any one of those recruiters that hit me back, I was dropping out applications and doing personal history statements and all that stuff. So I applied for the security position, and at the time, I just got I was doing EMT. I was doing my EMT stuff. I was doing college stuff. I was doing MMA, and I was lifting. So I was right in line with what you would expect from the security guard, right? And I got hired immediately. I had to watch like this video from like the 1970s. These old security guards with bus driver hats and like the button-up white shirt, and they're all whatever, right? And it was really old security training video, super old. I did that, took a test, and they filed for my level 2 license, and I started as a level 2 security officer, guarding parking lots, right? That was it. Started guarding parking lots. And I'm guarding parking lots, I'm guarding construction sites, and I start to realize, hey, this is kind of dangerous. This is kind of dangerous. And I noticed that there was other armed security guards, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna do armed, right? So at least if something bad happens, I can defend myself, I can do something, right? Plus, you know, it would seem to me that an armed security guard would just be a logical transition into something in law enforcement or something law enforcement related, right? So military, unarmed security, armed security. And when I went to my first armed security academy, it was about a week and a half long. That was where I was like, oh, wait a second. I remember some of this stuff. I'm doing defensive tactics. I'm checking my firearm. I'm orientating in a safe direction. I'm performing the 4 fundamentals. And all these things from the military just kind of like resurfaced themselves, but in this academy. And I don't want to say that I fell in love with it, because part of it, some of it, is not very exciting, not very glamorous. As a matter of fact, a lot of it's boring. But I was able to use some of those skills I had picked up from the combat side of the world and employ them into the civilian side of the world, right? Where all of a sudden, like, casualty care means something. Keeping a tourniquet on you. Well, I remember that. The 4 fundamentals. Well, I remember that, right? And I started to find a place to employ some of those skills I picked up in the Army that otherwise don't have a place in society, right? Like, there's not a lot of places that need something blown up. There's not a lot of jobs that need somebody, like, you know, surveilled for, you know, weeks and months at a time, right? Now, if you're a private investigator, that might work out, right? If you are if you're, you know, doing armed security or bodyguard services, you know, surveilling might be something that you do. So again, those kind of some of those transitional experiences kind of came over with me into armed security. And then from there, I started to find out very quickly what the unsexy stuff was, right? Like being called a rent-a-cop and dealing with people who do not like you at all, ever. Having to explain why I did whatever it was that I did all the time, constantly being under scrutiny. And I ended up just really falling in love with it, right? Yes, I was scrutinized. Yes, I got told all kinds of stuff, whatever, but it was an excuse to keep going to the gym. It was an excuse to stay kind of in that warrior mindset. It was an excuse to contribute to my community. And it provided me a pathway, at least at that time, I thought, into a law enforcement role. And for me, I was in college, but I also had a 4-year-old, right? I had a 4-year-old in college. I didn't have time to wait a year and a half or a year for a background review to go through. I need to start making money right now, right? I started moving and shaking right now. There was no, hey, you know, maybe I could get a job in a year. That's cool. No. I need to be putting some money on the table, or some bread on the table and some money in the pocket, like right now. I gotta move and shake. And you know, my 4-year-old, you know, she needed her dad to be there and to be putting out. So that was an opportunity for me to make money for my family and also stay in college while maintaining kind of that warrior spirit, that warrior mentality. And then I started to find myself in these crazy, obscure, dangerous, weird situations, right? And the more and more that I ended up doing the job, the more and more I ended up in these crazy, wild scenarios, situations that nobody would probably ever been in a million years. And all of a sudden, I'm in it. I'm dealing with it. And I had so much stress from the Army that dealing with stress on the job was like, oh, no big deal. For instance, somebody has a heat stroke on property. Hey, I got this. I'm in there. A fight breaks out. No problem. Fight. I got this. I'm in there. I'm dealing with it. Somebody wants to get violent. I'm in there. I'm with it. I'm dealing with it, right? And the opportunity to change people's lives with my security license became more and more apparent to me. And then I decided to kind of pursue it as a career, right? And now, kind of where I am right now, is I'm kind of like in the golden cage, if you will. Now I almost make too much money to get out of it, right? It would be a severe pay cut for me to go back the other way. So being in security has definitely had some challenges. But I think for me, it was a excellent kind of career choice to transition to. And I also feel like it's been a way for me to feed my family while maintaining some of those skills that the Army kind of taught me that otherwise would be lost. Anyway, that's all I got for today. But if you think that security might be your thing, shoot me an email or give me a call, and I'd be happy to help you.